Hi everyone, welcome back to Eleanor's restoration for the second part of the Swivel Hub refurb. So when I last left you had stripped one of the hubs and then I was going to tackle the other side. Did the other side go well? No, of course not, it's a classic Mini. So it gave me quite a few problems, and I've also been looking at the side that I repainted and refurbed last time and not too happy with it either. And I've said before, I want this restoration to be perfect the way I want it, and if I'm not happy I'm just going to get new parts. So yep, that's what I'm going to do. Two new swivel hubs priced just under £60 each, so it's not cheap, but I want these things to be replaced and I want them to last. And I've said before with the brakes, if I've got any kind of doubts then nah, it has to go. And I'll show you just now what the problems and the issues I had were. Right, so the hub that you've seen me refurb and strip down, I've not done a great deal since I last done the video. All I'd done was clean up the inside here, and you can see just inside there, there's slight scoring, and as you come round, it's not too bad on the outside, the side that faces the drive flange, but when you come to this side in here, you can see there, it's a nasty gouge and it's not smooth, and that bit is just where the wheel bearing, the taper bearing meets the oil seal, so it needs to be smooth, and it was annoying me, so no, I'm not going to go with that. So you've seen the state of this when I basically refurbed it and took it off. It did clean up quite well, apart from the inside obviously. I think the reason it was possibly as bad in here is because it was missing this. When I took it off it didn't have one, or it had snapped off at some point, I don't know. That is the water seal that goes between the inner oil seal and the CV. And it stops the water, or the theory is it stops the water getting in, and I think when obviously the water got in and damaged it, and that's why it gave me so many hassles. So when I put all these on, I'm going to fit them all correctly so that they last, and so that I don't have to change the bearings again for a long time, because if they're not fitted properly then that's what causes the problem. Right, so that's the one I refurbished. The other side, which I didn't get to the stage of refurbishing, was grotty, and then I tried to take the top arm off, and as you can see the bolt snapped here, and worse, the bolt snapped in there for the steering arm. So if I'd known that, I could have just refurbed it with the arm still in place, you know, the arm was solid, but I wanted to get in and get everything cleaned, so it's only by doing this that you know. So that is also going to be another swivel hub. Right, if you're thinking it's a lot lighter in here, you would be correct, because we now have two LED strip lights, and this is with the garage door closed. It is a world of difference, and it'll make it a lot easier for yourselves watching this. And also Santa brought me an action cam, so I'm going to be starting to use that, so hopefully the audio will be getting better on the videos as well. So yep, it's all changed for the new year. Right, so while I'm waiting on the parts coming, I decided to refurb both the steering arms for when I need them. I changed the matte black to the gloss black because I think it looks better, especially getting the new hub. The only thing I need to add on to these is the locating dowels that help hold them in place better on the hubs. There was one dowel left when I took this off, and rather than try and mangle it taking it off, it's in good condition, I just left it. This is the new one here, I've just set in place, and what I'm going to do is use the vice just to press it in. So just slowly press it in until it goes in. go. Right, so as well as refurbing the arms, I also refurbed, they were in good condition, otherwise I wouldn't have done it, but the bolts that attach the steering arms to the hub. They're not dear, but I've said before, they all add up, so that's about £2.50 a bolt. When you do that by 4, there's £10, you know, £10 that can go towards something else. So they're all ready to go. This is the old left-hand hub that was always going to be replaced. And this is its replacement. They look good, but don't just take it for granted these will be good. Check them over and make sure there's no faults, because it's better checking them and changing them now. There's a slight couple of bits and pieces that I've already noticed. Paint wise, you know, there's a few bits of paint that aren't great on it, so it's going to need repainted. There, for example. So don't just take for granted it's going to be in excellent condition. This is the old one. Sure, I could have spent time drilling this out, retapping all that, but no, it's not what I was wanting. I was wanting new, and I've kind of went over that anyway. But I'm pleased with these, and it's just a case of now moving on and getting this rebuilt. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cover in separate stages the ball joints, the bearings, and getting the steering arm back on. If you haven't already, have a look at Dave Jaguar's channel. He gave a couple of videos a while back on just tips regarding the hub, the bearings, the ball joints. It's worth a wee look. It certainly helped me when I was looking at rebuilding this. So yep, thanks Dave, as always. So let's get these rebuilt. The first bit we're going to fit is the ball joint. We're going to work on the lower one first because it's got this spring that I explained in the first video that sits in here. The top ball joint hasn't got that, so other than that they're, they're identical. So the first thing we need to do is determine how many shims need to go on here to make the ball joint move back and forth. Going by the Haynes manual, it describes it as it can move freely in every direction as long as there's a slight resistance, so that's what we're looking for. So it's trial and error by these shims. The pack that I got has got 4 for each side. These 3 here are a bit thinner, and then there's a thicker one. The thicker one goes at the top, so it's a bit stronger to hold up against the domed nut there. We're not putting grease on at this stage until we can find out what how number of shims we're needing, so we'll put everything on, trial fit it, see what number of shims we need, then it'll be all greased up and we'll basically refit in the order we took the last one off. But these are nice shiny new parts, whereas the ones we took off were minging. Right, so the first thing we're going to fit is the locking tab with the grease nipple, and as before it's the 8mm grease nipple. That comes with the pack, you get the rebuild pack. This just nips up, it doesn't have to be tight at all. So just enough to nip it up without rounding the bolt. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to put the shims in first. And I've got 3, I'm going to put them all in and then we'll tighten up the nut with all the ball pin and the seats in and see how much movement there is. Then we can then take some away if it's too tight. Once they're in the ball pin seat, we don't need the spring at this stage because we're only testing the shims, so that will go in when we know what number of shims we need. the ball pin seat. Right, so we're going to tighten the dome nut. That's with all the shims on, so I'm expecting the ball joint to be quite loose, because I'm sure with the old ones when I counted them it only had one shim on. And obviously the more shims the higher this lifts the dome nut and it leaves less resistance. So that's tightened up and we can see it's very loose, so that's not good. So we're going to need to remove shims, and I'll do that trial and error. I'll move one at a time till I get to the bit I'm happy with, then we'll come back to you. So there's one shim released, still far too loose. Two shims released, or removed, still far too loose. So we're down to one shim, that's three removed, and you can see it moves all directions and you can feel the slight resistance in it. You can hear it as well. Obviously that's all going to have grease in it, so it's not going to be a metal against metal sound, but that's a trial and error to see how many shims it is for your car. That only takes one for mine. It was one that came off, so it's obviously similar fittings. So now we're just going to take all that off, get everything greased up with just the general purpose grease. It doesn't have to be heat resistant grease for this. Right, we're wanting grease in here and on all the parts that are going in. Obviously once we're finished it, we're pump grease in with a grease gun anyway, but it's just so that nothing's getting missed out. And I've said before, I hate working with grease. It's dead messy, but it's a necessity, unfortunately. It's why I'm wearing gloves. And it certainly smells, well, there's no smell. It doesn't smell like the last one. And the spring that goes under the ball pin seat, I think it's the ball pin retaining spring is its proper name, but that's just off the top of my head. There's it's symmetrical, the spring, so it doesn't matter which way it goes in, it's just a spring. Just make sure it's all the way down to the bottom and that it's sitting square, otherwise the ball pin seat will not sit square. Just remember, if you've removed it, put your shim back on, otherwise the bolt will be coming off again. Right, sorry, off camera there, it took a bit more fiddling with. I had to add some more shims, and when the grease was in it still wasn't sitting, it was binding too much, so I had to fiddle about. So there's a few shims in there until I got to the stage I was happy with. Then I've tightened this to the torque setting 102 Newton meters, which is what the recommendation is, and it's as it describes and as I've seen before. It's to move freely in any direction with slight resistance and no binding, which is what it is there now, so quite happy with that there. What then needs to happen is this locking tab here needs bent up so it locks this nut in place. I mean, it's a fairly decent torque setting on it anyway, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this until I've fitted this one, the other one, and the other swivel hub so that I can check that all the resistance, if you like, and this is all the same and I'm happy with them all. I don't want to knock this on and then decide, oh, I need to change it or add a shim or take a shim, so that they're all even. So I'll do this very last. But the only thing left on this side, or this part here, is the rubber boot, which you see me taking off in the other video. So it simply slides over, and then obviously when it goes back on the upper and lower arm, that pushes down and holds that in place, and it just stops any crap getting in to the ball joint there, and it stops any grease seeping out from the other side. These, this spring washer, obviously I'm not fitting to the car at the moment, so to stop it getting lost I'm just going to stick that on there. And likewise with the bolt. So that's one side fitted. Just to, obviously, like I said, I've just to fix that, and then I'll need to put some grease in. But that's the two things I'm going to do last. I'm going to go on, I'm not going to film it, but I'm going to go on and do the same on this side now. Only difference being there's no spring there, and then I'll come back to you. Right, so after a bit of fiddling just to get things the right tension, tabs, I've just used a hammer and drift just to go along these edges, just to lock the dome nut in place. So all I really need to do with these now is just fill them with grease. Right, on to installing the new taper bearings in the swivel hub. Just for to avoid confusion, this side here is the inner side, and this side here, which faces the outside the car and basically towards the drive flange, is the outer side. So when you're referring to inner oil seals and outer oil seals, that's what it means. So this isn't one of the Timken bearing sets, it's just one of the standard sets. I didn't want to spend too much money on it. Might regret it, might not, but that's what I've went for. So what do you get in these sets? Let's have a look. So, oil seal, water shield, the other oil seal, the inner race, and the taper bearings, and then obviously the same again for the other side. The spacer that goes in the middle. Got a tiny amount of bearing grease, which I'll use more than that, I would imagine. And also a split pin that goes on the end of the drive shaft. So before I put it on, I'm just going to go over what order it goes in, what the difference is between all the pieces. But I'm going to stick up here a picture again that I showed in the first part of the video. It wasn't as clear when I stripped down the hub in the front video because it was all rusted together. There was bits and pieces missing. The only thing that's missing from this kit, which I've kept separate that came off the last one, are these. There should be two of these spacers. done a bit of research on this, and apparently in later cars, later Rover cars, it was decided that these weren't required, so they were just taken away from cars. So when you get these kits, this is not in it. So if you've got a car with this in it, it'll not do any harm keeping it in it. And Eleanor's 1990 and these were in it there, so yeah, I'm just going to keep it in as what came out. I do believe you can buy them separately, but that's a judgment call. If it was me and I didn't have them, I would probably get them because I'd want it all to be complete, regardless if someone later said, oh, it's not required, you know, I would do it anyway. So the order this goes in, so I've got a bit of hose here. We'll just imagine that's the drive shaft and the hub's not there at the moment. So inner, outer, this goes on here. Obviously the race is tapped in first, then that goes in here. This spacer goes in here, basically to keep the two bearings apart. This then sits here, like that. And bearing in mind when it's packed in, it's a better fit than what it is on this old bit of hose. Then on this side here is the outer oil seal. Now the oil seals, just to look at straight away, you think they're the same. They're not. There's a slight difference. So if you look at the edge here, this one has got a ridge on it. This one is flat. The reason that's got a ridge on, that is the inner oil seal, is so that this water shield clips to it. Well, not clips to it, but it's, you know, it's a better fit once it's in, and that's the reason the ridge is on that. So that's how you tell them apart. So the outer oil seal will go on here. This spacer goes on here. Then the inner oil seal goes on here. Then the water shield goes on here. I've seen people talk about, once this is in, just putting silicone around just to give it an extra additional protection. Yep, that's personal choice. I will be, because I've seen the state the last one was with the water, so yeah, so that's basically the orientation it sits in there. Now it's just a case of getting it in place in the hub. I need two hands to do that, so I am just going to pry my little helper away from his Christmas presents and his computer to give me a hand. So here he is, back for the sequel, after I've prized him away from his computer and his Christmas presents. Shall we get on with it? Mm-hmm. You can see he's really enthusiastic. Right, so I'm just going to start with the inner one here just because it's more stable. I'm not putting a vice, it's easier working here and I don't want to score anything around here. So the inner base, inner race even, the smaller circumference goes in that way. If you put it in that way, the bearing wouldn't roll in it. So it goes in here and it needs tapped into place. So you can either use a big socket, something round, tap it in gently. You can use a drift as long as it's soft metal and just tap it in bit by bit. But I like new toys, so I decided to get a new toy, and this is an actual bearing puller set. So I think this is going to be the correct size here. Nope. Basically sits on, gives it a good good surface to work on. This fits on here and it's just tapped in gently with the hammer. I think what I'll do is I'll just put a tiny bit of grease around here just to give it a bit more access going in here. Right, so first we are going to put a little bit of grease, like I say, a tiny little bit, just a smear all the way around. There we go. Put that in place. Try and make sure it's as square or as level as it can, because if it goes in squint then it'll just score the hub and the inner race will break before the hub does. So this, it's not an exact size that fits in here. I believe they're probably imperial, so instead of using it here and risk scoring in here, I'm going to face it that way so it sits flush on top, and then it'll take all at the same time. So this, very straightforward. You get the best bit, you get to hit something with a hammer. And that something is this, no my hand. Right, so put that over there. There we go, grab the hammer. Gently tap it, you're not trying to kill it. Right, stop there. And just check that it's going in square. Yep, so it's all going in. Okay. Let's check. Yep, still got quite a bit to go. So the camera died on me there, but after a lot of banging, we now have both the inner races in. This side wasn't too bad, it's not got as far to go in, so that's the outside. This side gave us a bit of bother. It's just hard trying to get it to go in square, and it just didn't want to go. So a little tip, the bore here, we just smeared it in grease. I know we smeared the outside of the race in grease, but smearing the bore helped a lot. So you can see, just by checking against the inside there, all the way around, just make sure it's flat, and the same on the other side. So we're looking along here, just to make sure that, you'll know once you're tapping it in it's going down, then you'll hear a metal on metal, a change in note, and it'll not go any further, so you do know when it's there, but just double check that it's level, and I'm happy with both of these. So that's both the inner races in now. The next bit we're going to look at is getting the actual roller bearings on them, getting them greased up and getting them in, but you can see how it just sits here, and that's how your wheel spins basically. So we're going to pack these with grease, but make sure when you're doing it you're not just using the outside here, you're wanting to put it all in the rollers, because these things are turning when the wheel's turning, so you want it all inside here. The grease that I've got in this pack is a long life grease, so I'm just going to use that, a long life axle grease, get that packed and then get that in. So I'm going to work from this side first, so I'll get this in here first. So there you go, that just sits on top. Again, make sure it's level in there. You want to just turn it in it. Right, so what goes next? The inner one, so pressed up against the race here, was this spacer, the one I was describing before. This came off the last one, so it's been degreased and cleaned and everything like that, but it goes in fairly straightforward. And just make sure it's sitting flush, which it is. So next thing is the inner oil seal, and again the ridge up here. The ridge comes out the way like that. This This just needs tapped into place. Just gently, it'll not need more, it'll not need as much as the inner race did to go in. Right, once the seal's been tapped down into place, it'll only go so far because that spacer's sitting above here, but you'll know it and it'll be square all the way around, and again you'll hear the change in tone when you're knocking it down. So once you're happy the inner oil seal's in place, this wee washer just sits on here. It does sit on there's a ridge as I showed you before. It's not like a click and fit, it just helps locate it and stops it moving. So once it's on the drive shaft, it's always held against it and locked in place. However, if you're moving it about here, it'll fall out. So what you have to be careful when you're putting this oil seal in is that you don't damage this lip, because then it'll not sit properly over it. But there you go, that's the water shield fitted there. I've not got any silicone at the moment, well, not to hand anyway. So before I put it back on the drive shaft and onto the subframe, I'll just put a smear of silicone around here, and it just gives you that extra layer of protection on it. So that's the inner side done. So flip the swivel hub over. Yep, I've been at the grease again. I've greased the other taper bearing. Before that goes in, we need this little spacer that sits between the two bearings, and it just sits in here. Just keeps them at an equal distance apart. And then the bearing goes on top, so it sits on the race. And again, you can just turn it to get the ball, little tiny wheels covered in grease. Just work it all in. Then the last thing to go on here is the outer oil seal. And as you remember, I showed you the springs on the inside of there when I took it off. Those go on the inside. This is the side that faces out. So yep, this just gets tapped on place in here. So that's that been tapped in, sitting nice, and there you have it. The bearings have been installed. On that side, have a look through the middle, see the spacer. And then into this side you can see everything's in place here. So just take your time doing it. You can spend the extra money on the Timken kit. I suppose you get what you pay for. Will these last as long? Probably not, but they're fine for what I'm looking for just now, given all the other money I'm spending on the other bits and pieces. So that's how you install bearings. Right, the last piece, the steering arm. Make sure you get the right steer arm that goes back on the right swivel hub. I'm sure it's been done before, but so your brake calipers go on here. The steering arm, it's easy to see when you're on a car, but when it's sitting here it's not as easy. So basically the steering arm goes the opposite direction of this. It bends down the way and it points in the way. That's how you know you've got the right one. If it bends other ways, points different ways, it's the wrong side. So just double check that. The locking tab that I showed you in the other video bends up slightly. You can see which way it bends, so make sure you put that end flat down. And it's just a case of tightening it up. I'm not going to show you that, I'm just going to do it and then I'm going to come back to the tighten bolts in 3, 2, 1. So there we go, tightened up, torqued up to 47 Newton meters. All we need to do is bend these locking tabs up to lock it in place. Just the same procedure as we did to take it off. Hammer it with a drift. There we go. Locking tabs locked. Bearings in. Ball joints on. Steering arm fitted. Because I'm a perfectionist, there's just a little few bits and pieces I want to go around, like bits here, and just touch up with paint before it goes back on. And obviously I still need to grease the ball joints, so there's a few bits and pieces that I'll do before I put it on, but that is but other than that, that is one completed hub. One down and one to go. Not many parts were hurt in the filming of this, just another water shield will be required. I got a bit too carried away and forgot it was plastic, so yep. That wouldn't be the same if you didn't break apart every now and then. So yep, I'm quite pleased with that. It took somewhere between 3 and 4 hours to do all that. Purely because I took my time and I wanted everything to be perfect. The biggest part was getting these right so that they were both the same. The shims are all different sizes and it takes a bit of trial and error before you get it, so I would rather get it right now than replace the parts in months once the car's been driven. So yep, that's this finished. Right, so as always guys, thanks for watching, thanks for your comments, thanks for your support. Keep watching, keep commenting, keep subscribing, and I'll keep bringing the videos. I've got quite a few bits and pieces to do now off camera, just because obviously I'm working on things that I've got one on either side. I need to do one and film it for you guys, then the other side I do it and take all the photos and log it for my restoration log, which you might get to see at some point in the future when it's done. So it does take a bit longer to film it and also to do that than it would just by passing on. But I enjoy filming it and I enjoy making videos. So yeah, I'll keep doing it. But we're nearly at the 500 subscribers mark, and I did say I would do a giveaway when I got to 500. I think I know what I'm doing now. So the thing that I'm arranging can only be for UK delivery, unfortunately, just the way that it works, which you'll understand when I do it. So hopefully I'll get to that fairly soon. Not that I'm in any rush, I'm happy doing what I'm doing with what I've got. You know, I'm happy people are enjoying it. But thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video. I think I'm nearly at the stage now having the front subframe completely built. I have all the parts, it's just a case of getting all the brakes and everything in together and reassembled. If you want me to do that, I can cover that as like an odd jobs bit just to finalise it off. Or if you're happy you've seen it all coming off, just let me know. Yeah, I don't mind. And as the nicer weather comes, I'll hopefully be able to do some more jobs on Ed. Still fighting with my arm, but I'm going to do what I can while I can. So yep, thanks, take care, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.